I'm Adam the Horror Historian, and today we're going to be talking about a game that has captured the attention of horror gamers everywhere. Bendy the Ink Machine is something of a phenomenon in the mascot horror category. The Stream Revenue Calculator website suggests they made a gross income of almost $13 million. For those of you who are unaware of what Bendy and the Ink Machine even is, Bendy started out as an episodic first-person horror game released by The Meatly. What started out as a sketch turned into chapter 1 of a game in about a week. Now the game went through a lot of revisions, so when I recently played it here live, it was very different from what I remembered, and I think it's for the better. As a storyteller is working on their craft, they have a better idea of how they want the story to go after working on it, and I feel like the revisions were a nice choice, making the world feel more fleshed out, even if it is done with some small changes. Over the course of 5 chapters, you play as Henry, the original creator of Bendy, who was invited back to the studio after a long period of time, only to find himself in this crazy, sepia-toned world filled with ink creatures and characters from the cartoons he helped create. And it's those characters we're going to talk about because there's a lot more going on here than just some simple-looking but nicely designed characters, done in the style of Max Fleischer. Bendy, the titular character, is basically multiple different aspects like most of the characters we're going to be talking about. Now there is the character in the cartoon and the giant ink demon that you see in the game. The cartoon character, the same one I have tattooed to my leg, is an interesting story and one that will sound rather familiar to those who like animation history. First of all, Henry created the character before opening of Joey Drew Studios. A lot of people were talking about how Bendy had a similar look to Mickey Mouse, but Matt, Pat, and I say that Bendy resembled that of Bimbo in both style and personality. Not saying that me and Matt, Pat are homies, we just happen to agree on this one point. No theory needed.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Bimbo is a creation of Max Fleischer, whose work I prefer to Disney, and that's only gotten stronger as I've gotten older. He used to be a rather big deal in animation, though his legacy was stolen. Disney was a master marketer and frankly full of shit on so many levels. He even stole some of Max's accomplishments and passed them off as his own. If it says anything about Disney, there's a popular narrative that Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was stolen from Disney, but that seems a little off because Universal actually owned the rights after the character was sold to them. Just a small factoid for you there. Back to Bendy. The character seems to be in trouble often. A very mischievous character whose name is based on the idea that he was always bending the rules, but deep down he is actually a rather kind devil demon thing. He's the mascot for the company and for Bacon Soup, which is a weird choice for a sponsorship, but hey, whatever works. The ink demon is rather different though. The last video I made I talked about unkillable stalker type enemies, and that's exactly what the ink demon is in this. You don't get to fight back against him, and right in the first chapter you have to run away from him, and your interactions aren't any different as the game progresses. He is the first creation of the Ink Machine, and of all of the characters that were created by the machine, he seems to be the one least finished in appearance. Boris looks like Boris. Alice looks like Alice. The Ink Demon doesn't really resemble Bendy a whole lot. Just the head. Of all the characters in the game, he is the most feared, except for by Sammy, who seems to worship the demon. Boris as a character is a bit more complex to talk about. There's only so much given in the game. We know the first one we meet, it seems to be rather kind and pure, and is named Buddy Boris. Now the origins of Buddy Boris is actually found outside the game and is the only Bendy book I've gone through called Dreams Come to Life, and is by far the only book in the mascot horror genre that I enjoy. In the book we follow Daniel Buddy Lewick as he interns for Joey Drew Studios. Spoilers for the end of the book. You've been warned, but by the end, Buddy dies and then is resurrected as Buddy Boris. Now we get to see Buddy Boris at the end of chapter 2 of the game. A timid character who ends up helping Henry, though it is not to his benefit at all. Boris has been collecting supplies and hiding from the ink monsters, which can be seen in the game Boris in the Dark Survival. And it ends off tragically when Alice Angel finally gets a hold of him. Sorry, Boris.
Go to sleep. Boris just died, so she can't have you.
Stealing his heart and then mutating him and making him into Brute Boris. And one of the best character introductions in the game.
Boris! Oh no, what has she done to you?
His body is swollen and out of proportion. The concept art makes it slightly easier to see, but his chest was not only ripped open, but Scraps has replaced his now stolen heart. Now, Buddy isn't the only version of Boris we get to meet during the first game, the other is that of Tom. Now, Tom is another version of Boris, but with some flaws. The biggest being that his arm has been replaced by some sort of animatronic, and we even see Alice and Angel, more on her later, trying to fix some apparent damage, but he also seems to be missing a chunk of his ear. This character is someone we have heard from multiple times, and that is Thomas Connor. We hear that he has major issues with Wally Franks and how they both go about doing their jobs. Since Thomas worked for Gent and had a college degree, it seems that Franks didn't respect him and the feelings seemed to be mutual. By the end of the first game, we actually don't know a ton about Thomas other than these things, but I'm told there is more coming in the Bendy in the Dark revival. I'll have to look into it. Yet, like the previous character, there is another dichotomy with this one, and it's because the making of the cartoons, there were actually two different voice actors used for Alice Angel. The first one you meet, who was also the first voiceover for the character, is that of Susie Campbell. She is the original voice of Alice and started out being nice and sweet, but by the time she is resurrected by the ink, she's turned into being bitter and jealous of the woman who replaced her. This can be seen in her character model when she becomes Alice. Her face is deformed, her repugnant interior now being seen by any who looks at her, her horns holding up her halo, and her desire to consume all those around her so she can be beautiful again. She is the one who turned Buddy Boris into Brute Boris. Spoilers for the game. We end up fighting Buddy Boris, and now I feel rather bad that we're beating up a teenager who just remembered who he was, and is super innocent, but right after Alice decides that she's had enough, and charges Henry only be killed by the next Alice we're going to be talking about. Alright, spoilers over. The next Alice that we meet is that of Allison Pendle, the second voice actor for the role, and the one who ends up being completely different than that of Susie. In the first game, which is all we're covering this time around, the best thing we have to show about who she is as a character is a letter that can be found in Joey Drew's place. Joey, sorry it's been a while since my last letter. Been busy with work at Archgate Films. The studio ordered another sequel. So I've been spending many hours in the recording booth again. It's fun though. Tom is doing well, thanks for asking. He's always tinkering or something. Mostly he's still upset about someone stealing one of his dusty inventions from your old studio. He'll get over it. Have a good New Year, Joey. I'll send you another recipe soon. Warm regards, Allison Connor. Apparently, at one point, Alice may have been fired and then reinstated into her position. Her kind and gentle personality most likely won her the job back. Her mention of Tom is interesting, clearly shows they are together, but the acknowledgement that the ink machine is now gone is troubling. It creates a weird timeline of events, and I'm currently struggling to piece things together, but that may be because I'm legit missing the last game and 2 books in the series. So we have covered 3 of the most important characters in the Bendy cartoons and their counterparts in the game. And we have a lot more that we haven't even touched. We haven't talked about Sammy, we haven't talked about Henry, and we haven't talked about the man himself, Joey Drew. So there's plenty more we can discuss later on. There's a lot more to the franchise than I thought, and I'm having fun going through everything, even though I'm not stoked about the RNG luck I'm getting currently in Bendy the Dark Survival. I know I'm missing a ton from the franchise, and I'm stoked to be going through more. Do you have a favorite character? I have Alice Angel tattooed to me, and frankly I find her to be the more compelling of the characters. Anyways, if you're interested in watching more Bendy and the Ink Machine content, I'm going to be putting a playlist together so you can watch all my live playthroughs and any corresponding videos. Until next time, long days, pleasant nights, and may you have twice the number.